Here's a better example of what I was just talking about. You can see the score lines or the cut lines that were provided with this piece from Vans. These are very light marks around the perimeter of the door that are supposed to be guides to cut the door to size, just as a rough guesstimate. But when you compare my markings to those, obviously my marks are, I don't know, obviously they're not in alignment with the marks from Vans. If I were to cut along these marks from Vans and put this door on my cowling, the contour of the door doesn't match the contour of the cowling. So by doing it the way that I had talked about, where you lay it on there and kind of let it find itself, this is the result. So you can see that my cutout is going to be slightly askew from what Vans thought the cutout should be. And I'm perfectly fine with that because I want the door to fit the cowling. So if there are any of these lines from Vans that fall inside of my marks, in other words, if these lines from Vans end up visible on the door itself after I've finished cutting it to size, I can just very lightly sand them out and they won't be noticeable. So that's the initial layout. I'm trying to get the glare off of it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those lines and see how the new door fits into place. All right, so to demonstrate this yet again, now that I've got the actual door cut, I've got it roughly cut and it is setting roughly in the area that it needs to set, and it is roughly lined up with these lines that I had drawn, of course, because I drew the lines first on the cowling, then I transferred the lines onto the cover, and now I've cut the cover using those lines. So I just put it on here loose, let it sit where it wants to sit. You can see it's not taped in any way, shape, or form. It's literally just laying up there, and I don't want to get near it because it slides really, really easily, and I don't want it to fall off. But you can see how close it contours the shape of the cowling. It fits really well, just lay in there without any attachment at all. So that's kind of what I'm talking about as far as don't necessarily believe the cut lines from Vans. Let the part sit where it wants to sit and make your own lines. And I think I might be able to show you those here. This top one might be the best. So you can see the shape of the door, and right through here at this angle is the cut line from Vans. Their recommended cut line. I don't know if that's going to show up. And then there's a little bit of one here at this angle right here. And there's just a snippet of this one up here in the corner. But now if I were to position this so that those lines kind of line up with my lines, had I cut the door using their recommendation, I'm just going to hold this here roughly. Look at that corner. That corner there is standing up off of the cowling probably more than an eighth. I don't know if it's quite 3/16 right in the very corner, but you can see that it just doesn't want to lay right. And you'd be committed to that fit if you just blindly cut on the scribe lines that Vans provides. Now, I'm not implying that Vans got it wrong. I'm just saying that these parts are formed and they are pre-scribed, so to speak, and they may not be exactly right for your specific application. So now that's back in place the way that I want it to sit, and it sits just fine. So I think what I'll do now, I'm going to kind of leave this door alone, I believe. I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to try to figure out where and how much of a flange I want all the way around. I'm thinking a 1/2 inch. I'm going to check with the plans and see if they give a dimension or a recommendation on how to cut this out. I know that vans, the drawing for vans at the bottom here, they have a cutout and then they like 45 across the corner. And I believe that is so that you can put like quarter turn fasteners. I think that's the van's way of doing it. I do not plan on doing that. I plan on using a hinge pin here and another hinge pin here where I can slide the pin out through the air intake. I'll be able to reach in here and pull this hinge pin out and the door will be able to open. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and put an even flange all the way around. But I want to see what Vans recommends. I'm thinking a ½ inch is plenty, but I'll see what they say. So that will be next. I'm going to kind of lay this out and I'm going to cut this opening and then I'm going to start massaging this and the door so that they fit nice together. Talk to you later. Howdy everyone. So I have the hole cut out in the cowling now for my oil dipstick thing, and that cutout, as far as I'm concerned, is finished, the actual hole itself. So what I've done, I've taken the cover and I've laid it back over from the outside, got it positioned where I like it, and I've got it taped in place. Now that it's been taped in place, I came around in here and just used a marker to trace this outline. So now the outline of this opening is traced onto the cover. So, like I said, I just have the cover. Let me see if I can pick this up a little bit. So there you can see the cover is just taped to the outside. What I'll do now is I'll pull the tape off, pull the cover off, and then I'll figure out how much of the cover I want to extend past the lines that I've drawn. So the cover is going to stick out beyond these lines all the way around a certain distance. I just have to figure that out. I think I'm probably going to go with about 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit more. I'm not there yet, but let me get this off, figure out what to do next. Howdy everyone. So here is the opening in the cowling. Again, this is finished, and now I've got my matching door to fit. I basically went, well here I'll show you my fancy Aero so that I know which way is up. You can see the black outline of the actual hole opening that I had just traced, and then you can see I went beyond that a heavy 1/4 inch all the way around so that the door will lay nicely on the cowling like that. When you look at, when I hold the door on like this and I look at it from underneath, the door sits flush and flat on this ridge all the way around. I guess I should call it a flange. When the door is laying on here, when I look from underneath, it sits flat on this flange all the way around, which is really cool. And with the door in place, if you kind of sight down the cowling this way, it does not stick up. It's in line, if you will, with this top face of the cowling. And that's true from every direction. If you look up this way, from the front, from the side, from the back, the door does not sit up higher than the cowling. Now, I know a lot of people will take the time and effort to cut this out, and they'll make their own flange underneath, and then they'll cut the door so that it fits basically inside of the opening, nice and smooth and flat. And that looks fantastic. That's just not my thing. I just wanted to do it a little bit closer to plans. And for me personally, I don't mind the look of panels, so to speak. This looks like an external panel, which I'm kind of okay with. It's kind of an older military kind of, I don't know how to describe it, just a more industrial, military kind of old school look. And I kind of like that a little bit. So I wasn't going to go overboard on this door trying to make it as nice as other people's. So next step is I'm going to make up a hinge and start figuring out how to get the hinge made and get it mounted to the cowling and to the door itself. So I'll get started on that, and I'll talk to you guys here in a minute.